Hello and welcome to episode 45 of Off the Bandstand. My name is Christian Wiggs. I am your host. Today's episode is Zach Kursman, a drummer, producer, and vocalist who is fresh off of his new release, Gratitude Boy. Zach graduated from the University of Texas at Austin with his undergraduate degree in jazz drum set performance, and in 2018 was selected as a featured student presenter for Vic Firth's Inside the Teaching Studio, an educational series in which he gave a lesson on the theme and variations of legendary jazz drummer Max Roach. In this episode, we talk about his focus on gratitude and returning to center. We also talk about embracing imperfection to produce his debut release, and the age-old scenario of drunk audience members that gigging musicians know all too well. So moving on to the releases of the week, of course you guessed it, the first one is going to be Zach Kursman's new EP, his debut release, in fact, that came out last Friday. In this episode, we talk about how this album is much more than just a silly, total bop, but it's also a beautiful expression of the things that Zach carries with him on a day-to-day basis. We also talk in this episode about how this album is a perfect example of why Off the Bandstand was created, to give a more personal view of the human beings behind the sounds that we love to hear. It makes the music all the more special and meaningful, and it would mean the world if you went and supported this release directly. So you can go over to his Bandcamp, which is zachkursman.bandcamp.com, to support the release directly and get yourself a digital copy where all of the proceeds, or I should say nearly all of the proceeds, go directly to the artist. And then if you want to keep up with Zach and what he has going on from a day-to-day basis, you can go over to Instagram, and his handle is @ZachKursman. So moving on to the second release of the week, this one is one that I've been listening to all the time for the past couple of years. It is Sarah Gazarick's 2019 release called Thirsty Ghost. It's her 6th album and it's Grammy nominated. Sarah brings such an honesty to this album and it really makes it stand out. And she does that in every album, in fact, throughout the entirety of her discography and her career. Listening to this album and listening to music should feel like a shared experience and a vulnerable experience. And even through a recording, she makes that, strikingly evident. So it also features a favorite track of mine, the penultimate track, which is called Distant Storm. It's actually a vocalese on a Brad Mehldau tune called When It Rains that is on his 2001 Largo album. And it features Kurt Elling for a recitation and some background vocals. It is not to be missed, and the arrangement of I Get Along Without You Very Well is heartbreaking and one of my favorite recordings of that classic standard. So if you want to support Sarah directly and go and check out everything that she's doing, you can go over to sarahgazarick.com. And then if you want to support this release directly, which is her self-produced album, you can go over to sarahgazarick.bandcamp.com. And then of course it's on all of the streaming platforms as well. But I always say if you can go and purchase that album, it does wonders for the artist and helps to allow them to make more music like this in the future. And then of course, if you want to keep up with the day-to-day with Sarah Gazarick and everything that she's posting and all the different projects she's involved with, because she has several, you can go over to her Instagram, which is @SarahGazarick. So now moving on to the Monk shows of the week. The first one that we want to plug is Tony Bray and Toro Flores' Quintet. That is going to be tonight, Thursday, May 20th. So you can get a ticket to the live studio audience if it's not already sold out, or you can just tune in to their YouTube and Facebook page where they will have HD streams going on. The second one that we want to plug is tomorrow night at Native Hostel. It's one of the final partnerships for the time being with Monks and Native Hostel. It's going to be Friday, May 21st, and it's going to be Colin Shook's trio and guests. All of the Monks shows are incredibly special, but it's even more special whenever the person who curated Monks himself is going to be playing. And of course, he's going to have all of the best jazz musicians in town as those guests. So tune into that. And you can buy a ticket to that as well. If the tickets are not already sold out, again, go to monksjazzclub.com to keep up with that. And then the last one we want to plug, there's no Sunday show that I know of for this week, but the next one will be on Tuesday that also has a live studio audience. It's Glenn Rexash's group. Glenn Rexash, a staple guitarist here in the Austin jazz community and someone who we need to have on this show very, very soon. He's going to be playing on Tuesday, May 25th as a part of the Austin Jazz Society Project Safety Net concert series that is coming through the end of May. So tune into all of those Monk shows, go and support Sarah Gazarick and Thirsty Ghost and all of her other albums, and of course check out the really meaningful silly, fun, total bop that is Zach Kursman's debut release called Gratitude Boy, that is now available on Bandcamp, Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes Store, everywhere you can get your music. That's where you can go and find it. And for now, just sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 45, Zach Kursman. This is Off the Bandstand. I'd started listening to the EP, I had texted you and I was like, man, this is so good. And I'm so excited to talk to you about it because it's like, it's silly, it's fun, it's incredibly musically rewarding to listen to. It's very, to use a word that I feel like you have a monopoly on, it's very chill. It's just fun. But at the same time, if you like really listen, you're talking about some stuff that is like, it's not necessarily like heavy, but it's very meaningful. And it has this like really cool kind of juxtaposition. And I do want to talk about that here in a minute, but so I can get a better, fuller understanding of like how you came to this. Tell me like where you came up, because I know you're from California originally, but did you grow up there your entire childhood and then come to Austin for UT, or did you move somewhere in there? And I'll stop leading the question and let you just answer.
First of all, thank you, man. I appreciate you listening to the EP. It means a lot. And thank you for the compliments. And that means, it means a lot, just even if it gets like one listen, that like matters to me, so, but, I grew up in Temecula, California, which is like the Inland Empire, kind of next to like San Diego a little bit. So it's like an hour out from the beach. Grew up there for like 7 years and then moved to San Antonio in 2006. So when I was like 7 or 8, so I good amount of my childhood, kind of, just the learning years of being like a kid and everything, that was in California. And then like kid to like where I am now, it's been all in Texas. So most of my like upbringing is here in Texas, but, I would say 2006 to 2017, the grade school, that's like where just a lot of like just growing up came from and meeting just new people and just kind of starting over again, because the school system in California is a little bit different than Texas. I think the education just process is a lot like, it's more like, let's get it going, in this state. But
tell me about that though. Like, and this could be a small tangent, but just because I'm not familiar. So how do you mean it's just like, do you mean there's more of an emphasis on like grade school K through 12 education where it's just like a little bit more amped up here in Texas as opposed to California?
I mean, when I was 7, I didn't really focus on like, oh, this is more emphasized in, Texas or whatever, because I didn't really know. And obviously I don't think I really like cared as a kid, but I think doing like marching band and like the percussion program here and like just music wise and music education, like Texas is like a lot stronger with the education and just they're very they are emphasizing just like you should do this, you should do that, you should study, you should go march, you should get into all these programs, and nothing against like California and their school system. I think there's a lot of great things about California, but it all has its, perks left and right. But Yeah, I would say there's like an emphasis on there. I think I was more focused. I think I've been more focused in Texas than I was in California, because I think I started like really getting into like drum set when I was like 7 or 8. And I
Okay.
really started to learn how to like kind of play a beat on like an electric drum set when I was like 7 or 8.
Sure.
But like when I was like, 4, and just my upbringing of like pencils on the couch, pots and pans, all that
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, I think I was kind of just like clueless and didn't really know what was going on in California. But like I knew that, I don't know, this rhythm thing
Hmm.
was cool, So yeah, I'm very grateful for that, because I didn't know like how important this actually like was until like right now, you know what I
Sure.
mean?
Yeah. So
So
was it more organic that you were just drawn towards, because like a lot of kids like to just, bang on pots and pans and stuff like that just for the sake of
mm,
like, I won't be dumb enough to say like object permanence or whatever, but they just like, they like touching objects. They like exploring. They like learning, like kids
right,
like that. But obviously there's a difference between, just having a fascination with hitting things and also
yeah.
then like actually wanting to find a rhythm and feeling that like draw towards the drum set. So what was the earliest introduction for you when it came to music and I guess drum set in particular?
Oh, my family like likes to keep tabs on like homemade videos, so they like to film just like the upbringing and like childhood stuff. So it's not until like I saw like an old video of me when I was like super little, and it was like 99, so I think I was like 2 or something. And my brother Andrew, he like made me kind of just like this makeshift kit, like little cooler,
Uh,
like a plate, like a pan, little like tiny toy mallets and stuff. And I think it was just an influence of like my brothers and kind of like my parents. They were supportive enough to be like, oh, this little kid kind of like figured something out, or there's some
sure.
fascination with that, with the yeah, it's just like a little kid just being like, oh, cool, that's not, it's nothing like troublesome, it's actually
Yeah.
something really cool, and kind of like musical. And
Hmm.
I think specifically like both my brothers, my brother Andrew specifically kind of just like pushed me to be like, yo, you want to drum, you want to jam, because he used to play drums. He used to,
Okay.
well, he plays drums too, but he plays like still like a variety of instruments and
Okay.
sings and stuff. So I think coming from a musical like family in a way definitely like shaped like my upbringing in terms of like being pushed to like just naturally being pushed to figure something out. Oh, this would be a cool instrument to try out. And definitely seeing some of those old videos.
Hmm.
um it honestly like surprises me just looking back at that stuff and being like, I didn't know it was that long ago, to where
Yeah.
I was just like already kind of into that. And I'm grateful for him. I'm grateful for my family for kind of just like putting me on to like music when I was like super little.
Hmm.
Specifically, I guess just growing up with like alternative, like rock and like pop and funk, like
Yeah.
Red Hot Chili Peppers and Lenny Kravitz and
Yeah.
Rage Against the Machine, and just all of those like cool, just rocky stuff. And that just made me want to play drums more. It wasn't until like I got to Texas in like 2006 to where it got like in a little electric kit, and kind of just started messing around, and I think the rest is kind of like history.
Yeah,
after that, and just an accumulation of things,
Yeah. Well, I'm curious because I mean, you do a bit of like singing, and not a bit, like you sing on every single track on this album too. So, Fremgen and I were talking he was the last episode, and we were talking about how he in high school was playing trombone, but hated trombone. And then like, even just like to the point where he let it fall off the stands and get destroyed. So he was like, look, I can't play trombone anymore. Let me play bass, to his band director, which is kind of punk rock. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like we kind of hear of people over time where they say, oh, it almost went in another direction. And being that you were also singing, which is not necessarily something that's like way out of left field. I think everybody who plays an instrument also sings to a certain degree. I mean, as evidenced by like the requirements of a degree, right? Where we have to sing for all of our, theory and oral classes. But, was there any other instrument that you were like, oh, maybe I'll go down this route, or maybe I'll do this in tandem? Or was it always kind of like, nope, drums is the main thing, and kind of tunnel vision from an early age?
I would say it's the latter option. I mean, I've always had a fascination for like all the instruments. I thought guitar, bass, piano, just like horns. I believe everything has a special place in my heart. Every instrument, and every instrument does have a big influence on me. But in terms of really figuring out what naturally came to me, I felt that rhythm and just drums and percussion, that's always been like a number one. It's always been like the number one part, in my life. And I would say it was like tunnel vision, going from like 7 years old into like middle school, the beginning of middle school. And then my percussion director from middle school to high school, he's like, hey, dude, you got to learn how to read music. You got to learn how to play mallet instruments. You got to learn how to play concert snare drum, tambourine, triangle, bass drum, suspended cymbal, crash cymbals, all of the conglomerate of the percussion family, just because
becomes more than a cooler and pots and pans and little mallets. Yeah.
Yeah. And drum set is obviously involved in there because it's a mixture of like a tom, snare drum, cymbals, all that stuff. So it's all connected. And later on, like piano, I play a little bit of piano, but not like, to where like Fremgen could say, a little bit dangerous, sure. on the instrument. But I would say like going from like 7 years old up until like the end of my college career, it's been just like a nonstop process of just really understanding how this instrument like works, and I'm still gonna forever learn how it works. I feel like as every musician wants to constantly learn how their instrument works and how they can grow with it. I believe it was more like just a tunnel vision thing. Like, this is my main process. This is how I therapeutically release whatever I need to release, because now in my life at this point, I'm seeing these guys as more of like a emotional therapeutic release and more like a healing factor. I still want to practice and, get better at this, but my perspective is like changed a little bit. It's not that the instrument is going to not stay with me forever, because it always will. But it's at different points in my life, the feelings and kind of just like everything surrounding me. This instrument is used for all purposes, you know, both emotional release, both to perform, you know, and to gig, and just comes down to just like, these are my roots, you know?
Yeah.
And that's like what matters most to me is like, all right, when I feel like I'm down or I feel like I'm lost, I do my best to connect back to my roots and be like, all right, where am I going to feel like I'm saved, you know, going to be saved? And it's always just coming back to music, obviously, but just coming back to these guys and, you know, drums. I mean, without like finding this, you know, I wouldn't be here right now. You know, I wouldn't be here talking with you. So it's like, it's all just a build up, you know, a constant process and evolution. It's a build up, and it's a big learning experience.
You could not be talking to someone more just like just in line. You're like preaching to the choir, everything that you're saying. I'm like, yes. These are all the things I've been thinking about over the past year, and more so than that, but really just, you know, this idea of the music and of the craft and of the instrument itself, not being necessarily like this, you know, this tangible object that there is a mystique and a craft behind that, you know, is this constant game of catch up where you're trying to master it and you're trying to pursue your passion and not focus on the, you know, crushing weight of everyone who's played your instrument before you, but feeling like the instrument is an extension not only of your body, because people are like, oh, you know, like my horn is an extension of my arm or whatever, but it being an extension of mental health and of emotional stability and of identity, right? And like Damian Garcia and I talked a bit about that, and Jacob Wise even for that matter too, where we were saying that, you know, in one way, putting your identity into your instrument and into your music can be a really great thing. And it can be a thing where you really find yourself. But in another way, if we make it to where our entire worth is wrapped up in that, if we think of it as identity in that way, then it becomes this thing that can be ultimately very crippling because of like this past year, right? Like if we put all of our emphasis, I was talking to Kat Edmondson about this, like if we put all of our emphasis and our happiness and our identity into how we are perceived on the bandstand, if we then go home and then we're not playing our instrument and the audience isn't there, then we will feel as if we are failures or we have lost purpose until we get onto the bandstand again. Or even worse, what if you get on the bandstand and then you're just playing for a crowd who's just not digging it, right? So then you're doing your thing and you feel like, oh, I'm giving my all right now. I'm giving the thing that like is the most true, you know, vulnerable sense of me, and then they don't give a shit, because then that feels like, definitely. Oh, well, what have I just done for the past 25 years of my life, you know, dedicating it to this thing where I feel like I can be most useful or most impactful, whether it's that for a social circle around you or for offering your music as an offering to people. So this idea of your drum set being an avenue for expression and for like wellness is just so absolutely, you know, just like it's making all of the bells go off in my head. I'm like, yes, this is how I've been feeling this past year, and really trying to focus on the piano too, of just, you know, not even some days like I don't sing at all and I'll just go to the piano and try to, you know, let whatever feelings or inadequacies or joys or tensions or fears, whatever I'm feeling that day, be expressed within the idiom of jazz chord changes. So anyways, you're the guest here, not me. I'll stop with my tangent. But this is, again, like the exact thing that I was like, oh man, I hope this is the way that the episode goes, and not like I have a preconceived notion. Of course, I come to every one of them with a blank slate. But one thing that I heard you say about your brothers, you were like, I'm very grateful for them. I'm very grateful for this. And then you were like, oh, this is me expressing my emotion through my kid. Making an album called Gratitude Boy, with an I, ladies and gentlemen, because pop culture is alive and well in the jazz idiom. But yeah, like Gratitude Boy. And then like, the lyrics, I didn't write them down, but if I can remember them, it's like, sun, thank you for giving me life. Universe, thank you for giving me, I believe it's like my soul or something like that. Forgive me for not having all of the lyrics memorized, but
you got it.
Okay, great. So
yeah, you got most of it. Yeah,
great. So I mean that, and I want to just like give it to you and let you talk about it. But that is something that I feel like a lot of people at our age, and at the risk of being controversial, without going to kind of a superficial like religious place with it, that some people are like, oh, I'm just so grateful for whatever, like, because then it feels like rhetoric. This feels like no, I'm just grateful for all of these different things. Tell me about like what was going through your mind making that song and how that impacted like the beginning of this record.
So before I go into that, like going back to the point of like sometimes you don't even sing, right? And you go to different avenues just to like release whatever or experiment or journey or, just kind of just, I have to step away from these a lot of times. And honestly, this past year, I felt like the pandemic to me personally was so mentally taxing to where I didn't even want to touch these guys. I didn't even want to play the drums. I just felt like it was time for me, because I've always wanted to create. I've always wanted to create songs, and just really discover my writing side, discover like what's going on like inside here a lot more, because I felt like I have a decent approach to like what I feel while playing this, but also for me, I've always wanted to make a project, make an album, because I've just had a love for just songs and just artists in general. So the biggest thing for me was, all right, throughout my college career, I wanted to create an album. Always, I was experimenting with beat making, with trying to just come up with different ideas, trying to figure out how to mix, trying to figure out how to use my DAW, how to use Ableton, and that was all very. It's still a difficult and task. It's just still a difficult task that I'm evolving and learning along the way always. Yeah. But I think this past year was the perfect timing for me to kind of just step away for a sec and be, what's the word I'm looking for? Step away from this and move forward into, okay, I'm very stressed out. I don't want to get sick. I don't want to see anybody, because this is totally new to everybody. Right.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm sure when the lockdown in March happened, I was like, I'm out of here. You know what I mean? So it was not until like, I think it was really until that lockdown happened to where I started realizing, okay, I just want to listen to more music. I just don't, I want to play this. I want to keep getting better at this always, but I need to take breaks. I need to take a break from this, because I've shedded all a good amount of bebop drumming transcriptions, and I'm paying homage to Philly, to Elvin, to Max, because they're all great heroes of mine. Without learning how they played, and the music they played and created, I wouldn't be at the I wouldn't say caliber, but like level I'm at now. So I'm grateful for for the heroes that came before, and especially for Wayne, my professor, for just showing me the way there, and just learning about the history of the genre of jazz and all that. And but coming back to the pandemic in this past year, I felt like it was time for me to just buckle up and really just listen to music and just start diving into this process of like making something. I don't know what it's going to be at the end, but I just want to put something out, and I want to be proud of it, and just keep evolving and moving forward. And the idea of waking up every day being like, okay, I'm alive, well, I'm grateful to be alive and well, and just being able to play and being able to make music. That's just gratitude in itself. And, I'm very, 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 it's like a humbling experience, to say the least. So I believe it was like this past summer. I just really started to hunker down and just start listening, just start creating, whether my ideas are shit or not, just throwing whatever at the wall, seeing what sticks. Some days I'm like, is that it? Is that it? Nah, it's not it, and then I come back the next day and I'm like, okay, that's actually not bad,
Yeah.
So this whole process is nothing but a learning experience, a growing experience. And also it was an ego battle. It's a battle between like me and my ego, and also being grateful, for that voice in my head, because it's like providing like a mirror for, this is not me. I can do better. I know my worth, I can move forward. For Gratitude Boy, for the EP itself, Gratitude Boy, the first track off of the EP, that was actually the last track I made.
Okay.
The first track I made was All I Want to Do, because I started getting back into RuneScape. RuneScape was like a big like childhood just a joy of mine. I really love games, just video games, and just just the role playing, just creation stuff, and that game was like near and dear to my heart just growing up when I moved to Texas. And within that song, there's also just the fact of while I'm playing this game, I'm also doing what's best for my body in terms of just like emotional release and therapy. So playing that game is therapy to me. Going for a run, journaling has always been a therapy for me. I feel like I'm going off on a tangent right now. I don't know.
No, you are right. If it's a tangent, it's one that I have buckled up and I'm cool. All here for. I think that is just something that you said there right at the end was that you were like, realizing that playing RuneScape and something that was like emotional therapy and a release for you, an emotional release. I think everyone and their mother likes to say, oh, video games are a waste of time, or oh, you shouldn't do as much screen time. And I'm not disparaging against like the psychology stuff that, too much time with screens or whatever. I don't want to get into that.
Yeah.
I'm not at all qualified, not even begin to qualify to talk about that. But while I do think there's something to be said about that, about, also like balance, like everything in moderation, right? The idea that it's like, oh, video games are just, for fun or whatever, and don't do too much of it because it's like having too much, or it's having cake for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If cake is healthy for you, if it's a fruit cake, I don't know, that's probably not healthy. Just said fruit in it, so I was like, whatever. Do it, man. Like, find what makes you relax. Find what makes you feel healthy, because I think we are so caught in. And this also has to do with the state of the pandemic, but because I feel like I can't remember who I was talking to this about. It was back in the 20s episodes, but it was something about like because of the fact that we've already as musicians had to wrestle with the fact that we have like unconventional work hours, and they're typically shorter, when we're actually at the work, at the gig, but like practicing and getting ready and shedding for that gig is also technically part of being at the office and doing that work. So even though we have like unconventional hours, we've been told by previous generations or whatever that we are not doing a real job, and that like we are invalidated in things that we're doing. So then when that got taken away from us, and we had all this time during the pandemic, and we were still on our sleep schedule where we sleep until 10, 11 a.m. because we were playing until 2, 3 a.m. We wake up late and we're like, oh, all these other people are already doing their jobs, and now we're just bums and we've like lost purpose and stuff like that. And so, then I think people also attribute that same thing to like video games and say like, oh, well, you're just wasting your day away when you could be like actively trying to find a job or whatever that is. And sure, there comes a point where we do have to take care of responsibilities. Nobody's objecting to that fact, but if you are finding your peace through playing RuneScape and then listening to music, which you are then absorbing, which is part of your job. Listening is a huge part of our job. You are working, and you're also working on yourself at the same time. Yeah. So anyways, I continued that tangent, but yes, I firing on all cylinders.
I I agree with you in terms of balance, because I mean, balance is such that word is like, in itself, it's just very difficult just to balance in general, because, humans are creatures of habit, right? Once we get stuck on something, we can get obsessed, or just get in a habit of just like doing too much, and then we get burnout, right? And then the mind and the ego kind of just goes crazy. Like, man, you're going crazy, man. Like, you know what I mean? That's what's happening in my head. I'm like, come on, man, stop. But it's more so just about, okay, assessing that I've overused my time for this. So I have to unplug, right? And then go out in nature, reconnect, ground myself, because that's what I believe is like cool. Screen time, that's cool, but it's also stepping away from the kit, stepping away from Ableton, stepping away from video games, literally just walking near trees, just walking on a trail, just being next to the stream of water. All of that like contributes to my healing process. And naturally, this is just a personal thing for me. Naturally, I'm just a very anxious person, kind of like, just anxious, paranoid a lot of times. But what this EP has done for me is it's provided me with stability. It's provided me with a balance. It's provided me with a balance of stability, knowing that, I'm following through with this. And also it's a balance of like, my ego getting in the way and being like, oh, is this good? Is this good? What are people going to think? You know, where it's more so just like, if we connect these two together, does this like really make me feel better? You know, is this really what's healing me? And at the end of the release, you know, like 4 days ago, I felt, you know, it was a balance. I felt both complete and empty at the same time, because being in the creative process, the songwriting process, just where I was at, creating this specific song at this specific month, you know, up until this point, you know, I felt whole, and I felt relieved that I actually went through with this and released something. And, you know, I'm grateful for myself for not like backing down, you know, and backing away, because I could easily just give up and be like, yo, yeah, you know, my head's not in the right place right now. And there are times where I had to take a break, take lots of breaks from the tunes, working on the tunes, because, you know, I was in mixing and editing mode like all the time. Just stopping on one measure, like, what was that? Was that something, you know? And just like coming back the next day and it was nothing. You know, you export the version, it's like my mind was literally just getting in the way, because I was so like in habit, so like obsessed with just like the editing part, and like so deep into the process to where I'm like, just take a deep breath and just like unplug for a sec, go outside, don't play drums, don't make music for a sec, just like walk, just observe, you know, listen, instead of just diving in, because I'm not a computer, you know. My process comes in waves. When I feel like there's a wave coming on of being like, okay, I just got a melody in my head, like I'm writing that down immediately, and I try to just, you know, get something started there, and then after that I'm either adding more to it or I stop, and then I wait for the next wave, you know. So it's been a big process of, you know, growing and evolving as a songwriter, just as a musician, just growing as a person, just trying to be a better person every day, and just trusting this process of being like, yo, this is not going to be perfect at all. Like, and I'm fine with that, because, you know, I would rather be imperfect. I mean, you know, humans we're not perfect people, you know. I'm not perfect. So the main thing is like just embracing that imperfection, but also like embracing, it's hard to embrace the imperfections, because there's a lot of insecurity within that, you know. And you know, even though I've had a lot of I've believed in myself a lot through this process, and I've doubted myself a shit ton through this process, and the belief definitely overweighed the doubt. But like, definitely up until the release, it was just like, you know, just kind of like, you just it was like pushing at it's like, nah, you won't do this. But then it's like, I got this, you know. And it's I've had the support, you know, of also just my buddies and my roommates just pushing me through the process. Clunis, Chris Loveland, you know, we live together, so it's wake up every day and be like, yo, man, like, I don't know how I'm feeling about this. He's like, man, take a break, you know. Just like comes in, I'm like, hey man, let's record some bass. Comes in my room, literally just like open the door, his room's right there. Comes in, just like you know, and just lay down some stuff. And it's cool having creatives in the household, because it's not only like my process, it's like a collective process, you know. So he's a big part of it. My buddy Justin, he's the like art director for the cover and you know, all the pictures and everything. So, you know, he's been a big help. and helping me push my process forward, and everybody else who's been on the EP. So, you know, it's not only am I grateful for just the process in general, I'm grateful for myself just pushing forward, you know, just really like just believing in myself no matter how much my ego is like, you won't release it, you won't do it. Because that's like, I get into a lot of ego battles and I get anxious a lot, you know, and a lot of it just comes from like that voice in my head just being like, you won't do it, you won't do it, you know, you won't do it. And so it's just me waking up every day and being like, I hear you up there, and I accept what you're saying to me. But at the same time, I can choose not to go with that voice in my head and choose to be like, all right, it's here, man. It's like, this is what's going to push me forward, you know?
Yeah.
It's like my heart pushing this process forward, knowing that I got this, knowing that I believe in myself to do this. And it's just hard believing in oneself because there's so much around us that I personally have compared myself to so much around me, because like a lot of people are just great artists, great musicians, great people. So it's difficult not to get into that headspace of being like, damn, is this like really good, you know? But it's more so like, oh yeah, it's good, you know what I mean? Like it's badass, you know? And like this is me diving in to my process. This is me being just as me as I can be, and just coming from the heart, like what's really like inside of here, and just pushing that forward and rolling through with it. And I don't know if that answered your question, but it's such a big like process, so it's hard to explain it all in like one like blunt or short answer. But I just think the pandemic really forced me into actually putting out something, and I'm like grateful for the pandemic too, even though it sucked at the same time, you know, because like, I mean, obviously there's a lot of, it was like a balance of like the pandemic gave us time to look inside of ourselves to really like just figure out what's going on, you know, and figure out how to like heal and just like mentally like feel better and just process a lot of stuff. And also there's people getting sick, and you know, that's something I feel for too. It's like, I don't wish any of that upon anybody, you know. I want people, you know, to feel good and to, you know, to move forward with their lives. But if the universe like purposely put this into everyone's life just to slow things down and just make people kind of process what's going on, then like that's personally what it did for me, because I've been holding off on making just a project for a long time because, you know, I was scared of going into songwriting. I'm scared of singing. I've never liked my voice until like probably the CP, you know, and it's something that I've built the confidence up from, and it's just endless breaking the barrier of being like, you know, my voice is my voice, and like I don't want to sound like anybody else, and I just kind of want to just do it, you know. And when you're talking about singing, that's like a big thing for me, is like I was so afraid to like just sing in general, you know. I just didn't want to, whether being in tune or not, you know, I just didn't even want to like just sing anything, because like I just had that ego trip of like, people gonna, you know, make fun of me or whatever, or just like, am I going to embarrass myself or whatever, those are just like the personal feelings that were running through my mind. And I knew the best thing for me was literally just to like let it out, just really sing and open it up. And, that's what like really pushed me forward and pushed this album forward, was actually just writing and singing and experimenting. And yeah.
Man, just I'm going to sound like a broken record, but just firing on all cylinders, man. Like Zach, I am convicted that I did not take the time to get to know you personally sooner, because you are just one of the most beautiful human beings that I've ever met, man. I mean, just like it's that, and when I say casual, I don't mean casual in that it doesn't mean anything, but the casual like vulnerability that you have, and that it's not that it's casual in that it's like, oh, whatever, man, like it doesn't matter. No, just casual in the sense of like, there's the conversation about toxic masculinity is not going anywhere, but like the idea of just being so open and vulnerable and like allowing, because a lot of people see cover art and a mixed and mastered record that comes out on Spotify, and immediately that clicks to people as like, oh, they've got their shit together. Oh, they're like this, other kind of thing. Or maybe that's just the way that I felt about it before I made records, or even now, and I just go, oh, because for some reason I can't try to liken my experience of making records to other people making records, because I think that's just a feeling of like imposter syndrome, where it's like, well, I barely got out unscathed and made this record, but all these other people are probably making this full piece of art. And it's like, oh, like, and they had a very clear vision, and they like made something with very dense, thick textures and like all this stuff. And whenever you look at your own art, you just see like, oh yeah, I lucked into that, right? Like that was a mistake that ended up being cool, and somebody's going to go, oh, they did this on this part. No, it was like a mistake, so like it's that kind of stuff. But another thing that you'd said of just like toiling over and being okay with your imperfections on a record, and when you said that you were like, I'd be listening in mixing and mastering mode, and then you'd be like, what was that? And then it turns out it's nothing. I like had to like look down. I was just like cheesing so hard, because that was the entire third record for me. I mean, if you look, God bless Charlie Kramsky, my engineer, because I sent him like, we had too many mixes, and I would send him just pages and pages and pages of notes, and I'd be like, at here there's a crackle, at here I think I can hear the piano bench, at this I can hear this, and I'd want him to go fix up all this other stuff, and then I go and listen to like my favorite records, and then I like don't notice it at all, but then I like really listen, and I go, oh yeah, I can hear all that same stuff. I can hear the room noise. I can hear like I can hear the bass player breathing really hard while he's playing his thing. Whereas that's something that if it were my record, I'd be like, how do we get that out? How do we get that out? How do we get more of just like a pure sound?
Right.
And I think that also goes to like the sense of like trying to model perfection after what we think is perfection, because we are so fascinated with other people's work, and then we think it needs to be perfect to the last tiny little iota or last tiny little sound, when it doesn't have to be that at all. And it's more about just being honest in the moment and in the music. One thing that I also thought about was about that whole idea of chasing perfection is, I think one of the greatest comedians of all time, and I mean, more than a comedian, even though he would just say I'm an overpaid asshole, and which he does say that all the time, is Bo Burnham, because he does, and in a very large way, and I've been talking about Bo a lot recently, was kind of the original inspiration for wanting to do Off the Bandstand, because of the fact that like in his last special, which he just announced like a new special, but in his last special like 5 years ago called Make Happy, at the end he does this like Kanye rant thing, and I literally listened to it like 3 times today already, like on my run, because it's so emotional to me in that like it's a comedy song, but it's this like, you know, the whole like instrumental auto-tune thing, and he's like, you know, singing, kind of making fun of the Kanye rant thing. And then, you know, he makes jokes about Pringle cans, and then makes a joke about like how he can't fit his hand in a Pringle can, then makes a joke about the guy at Chipotle like wrapping a burrito, but then it spills out, and he's like, dude, you should have told me halfway through, hey man, you might be reaching maximum burrito capacity here. Do you think I want a messy burrito? No one wants a messy burrito. The whole appeal of a burrito is that all of the ingredients are contained within the confines of the tortilla. You know, all of this different stuff. And then he gets to like the end of it and he breaks it down and goes, I could sit here and talk about Pringles cans and burritos, but the truth is, and talks about the audience and says, the truth is my biggest problem's you. I want to please you, but I want to stay true to myself. I want to give you the night out that you deserve, but I want to say what I think and not care what you think about it. A part of me loves you. A part of me hates you. A part of me fears you. A part of me needs you. I don't know if I can handle this right now. And in the very beginning of the special, you know, somebody's like, you know, people are like wooing and trying to like talk in the audience. And his whole shtick is that he's like sarcastic and ironic. And he goes like, he's like, hey, audience members, like this is a listening show. He's like, I'm trying up here to immortalize something that I've worked on really hard, or I'm trying to immortalize something I've worked really hard on. And I feel like the same way, that same kind of truth is that for us in making records, we're trying to immortalize something because it's going to exist after we die. So we don't want to leave something that has any imperfection and shows any lack of due diligence for our art and for our work. I'll get off of that tangent and say that like I originally just was asking about that specific track, Gratitude Boy, but I was going to go through the whole thing. But what you did was you went through all of that I wanted to know. And one of the things I wrote down on All I Want to Do is like just the same things that you were talking about. Like, I'm thankful for you, my buddy. And it's like, I'm thankful for you, man. And I was like, yes, I love it. Like, this is great. And you're like going for a run now with gratitude. It's that easy. And I wrote down, you've always struck me as a very relaxed person, and it doesn't seem like stress really consumes you, at least from an outward perspective. But then to hear you talk about because you've always struck me as someone who is very, very calm, just very go with the flow, very, again, the word you've monopolized, chill, like it's very just like relaxed. And then as I'm making those notes, it goes into overload. And I was like, okay, overload, and let me listen with another lens. And then the very first lyric is, hello, anxiety. You've been treating me very well. First, you're the first thing to wake me up and to be friendly, which was kind of a weird dichotomy to me, because it's like the first thing to wake me up in the morning, it's the first thing to wake me up in the morning, but it's like, oh shit, what have I done today to prove that I matter to the universe? Whereas you were saying, you've treated me well, you know, you've been friendly, hello, anxiety. So in that way, was that kind of like a sarcastic thing, or are you even in the sense of the things that trouble you with anxiety and stress? Even that, are you feeling that you are thankful for?
There's a mixture of goofiness and there's a mixture of seriousness, like you were saying in the beginning. But that tune specifically, I think I wrote Overload in October, around that time. But I had like ideas for it back in like summer, just kind of like just like, you know, the little like pizzicato thing going on, and like just like the beat and everything. But externally, you know, I externally, if I present myself as being you know, very go with the flow and chilled out kind of guy, yes, but at the same time, like, it's hard for me to go with the flow because my ego wants to take control of a lot of stuff, just like everything, because it feels that my illusions will be like crumbled if like nothing is gonna like go my way. But there's a balance between like control and there's a balance between like letting go, you know? And that song was not sarcastic like at all, because I believe that, you know, you go from All I Want to Do into Overload, so it has kind of like the vibe change, right? It has like a change in terms of like, okay, cool, he's got everything down, you know, those are his joys, and then you wake up the next day and it's like, shit, like I didn't process or reflect on like what, you know, what I was thinking about last night, or what I was worrying about the other day, or what's prepping for like the week ahead, you know? So, Overload is kind of like the anthem for me in terms of really being grateful, not just for the, you know, the moments, the positive high moments, you know, but also being grateful for the low moments, because under stress, you know, under anxiety, under times to where like I'm not mentally doing well, that's where like I feel the best things or the best songs come out, is when I'm doing well under pressure and under stress and anxiety. And I you know, I don't know, it probably works. I don't know if it works for others, but I know for me personally, that was more the heavy, that was a heavier song. And that one like meant a lot to me, because it means that it meant that that point at that point when I was writing that song, I was getting somewhere, because like that one felt the most, what's the word? Well, I mean, it felt vulnerable, and it felt the most real to me. And that was something that was a release and therapeutic. And I wanted to write lyrics about that and write about it, because, you know, I was going through a lot of stress, a lot of pain, like mentally, physically. You know, I have like bad scoliosis. So like I finally like saw a chiropractor in January, and like I didn't understand like how bad like the pain was until like really this next year. I think just the pandemic kind of like blanketed like physical pain and kind of just turned into like anxiety and stress. And therefore I was like crying a lot and like letting that out. Like, honestly, like during that time I was crying a lot, pretty much like every day, because one, I was anxious just for whatever, you know, this whole underlying thing going on with the, you know, with coronavirus and all that. But also I didn't know that like my spine was that screwed up, because I took an x-ray and I'm like, yo, I am way out of alignment, like physically, you know?
Yeah.
And then mentally that made me like misaligned. And part of the reason I felt like I was anxious and stressed was because like my body was like physically like kind of out of whack.
Yeah.
And that kind of transferred over mentally, or like transferred mentally down to physical pain, right? Because mind comes first and it goes down.
Yeah.
But you know, now I'm doing better. I'm doing a lot better now, and I'm learning how to like curb and you know, be friends with the anxiety and like beat it a little bit more, and just come to terms with it a lot more than like back then. Back then, like I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna let this out. I'm gonna write it. I'm gonna just keep going, keep making stuff, even though every day I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on with my mind right now, or what's going on with me. It was that constant like just battle like within myself, and especially like constant battle with like, you know, the voice in my head just being like, why are you doing this to me, man? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And it's it was like it was a bit heavy for me around that time, but yeah, to answer your question, it was
Mm.
accepting the low moments, you know, and
Yeah.
accepting the moments to where I'm like, I'm not doing too well right now, but that's okay because like it just means like things are going to get better, you know?
Mm.
So it's like, you know, like we were coming back to this whole talk about
Mm-hmm.
balance, you know, of just like, I got to be like at rock bottom and I got to feel like shit and like let this stuff out to know
Mm.
like this stuff's coming right back around the corner, you know, I'm going to
Yeah.
feel better. And chronologically for the EP, I don't know how it naturally just kind of like fit in there. Like my track list, I didn't have like three like ways of doing a track list. I'm like, maybe
Sure.
switch these or whatever, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I was just like, boom. I feel like all I want to do wants to be the second tune. Overload definitely needs to be in the middle because like this is the turning point for like just cool stuff's cool like in the beginning, you know, this is my ode to being just grateful for everything and
Mm.
you know, these are the things that make me happy. And then it's like I just wake up the next day, I'm like, yo, what am I feeling? Like,
Yeah.
why am I thinking this, you know? And I write in my journal, I'm like, dude, I don't know what the hell is going on with me right now in terms
Yeah.
of like just feeling things out and just day to day like life and just trying to communicate with you know, not only myself, you know, internally, but just like others, you know, I'm getting that like social anxiety.
Mm.
Because I've definitely gained like social anxiety due to this whole thing because kind of like forced everybody to like hermit back into the house, you know, and
Sure. Yeah.
obviously don't go out, you know, but now I guess it's a little bit different. Things are changing, you know,
Yeah.
but yeah. So yeah, to not run on a tangent, to answer your
No, no, you're
question,
fine.
it's just like it's just accepting the low moments because the positive moments are like right around the corner, and it's like really sitting and like understanding, listening to those moments to where I'm like super fucking stressed out, to
Mm-hmm.
where I'm like I just there's hope in between those moments. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%, man. Man, you are gonna get a huge fan base following, and we're gonna call ourselves the Gratitude Boys. The Kursman Gratitude Boys, man. This has just been so great, man. This has really made my whole week. One thing that I was going to say that I feels even more appropriate to comment on now, and I thought about saying it earlier whenever you were like, I've focused on the kit and you focused on paying trivia, paying tribute, Jesus, to Philly Joe Jones
Yeah.
and Elvin and Max Roach and people like that. But something that I had written down was that you've been surrounded by these people who have really kind of made very and you even talked about that with Clunis, is that you've been surrounded by these people who have been very kind of unapologetic in the music that they want to make and the art and the creation that they feel comes from themselves. And I put down that I think we often try to go through all of the stages of music, especially in jazz, because there's so much history and so much lineage. We try to view that as a linear path where we have to absorb and learn all of it first before doing our other stuff. But I feel like but I think there's a beauty in trying to absorb those influences and that history and put it into practice in real time to complement and inform the musical ideas that even set you on that path for a career in music in the first place. So it does feel like, instead of it's like, all right, I'm going to transcribe every single recording of Elvin Jones and Max Roach, and I'm going to do all that, and then I'm going to do my other thing. It's like, no. Like, instead of viewing it as like one pathway, just view it as kind of a, viewed as going upwards, and
Right.
and all of them coming together to make this like sandwich of, you know, of musical inspiration.
Definitely.
Man, Zach, what an incredible conversation. What an incredible episode. Maybe
Yeah,
in my
dude.
top 5, man. This has been so
Hey,
good.
appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me, and thank you for doing these things. Like it it means a lot. Like just hearing other people's perspectives, as well, not just mine. But yeah, grateful for you, man, for just
Hey,
putting this on, man. I appreciate it a lot. I'm not like great with interviews. Like I don't have like a like in just past experiences. Like I've just haven't been the best speaker. That's just like been a fear of mine. Just answering questions and just trying to be like myself and just trying to like open up. And it's scary because I feel like it would be like perceived the wrong way or something like that, or just, or whatever. But, I like appreciate you for like creating like a, safe space for people, that's
of course, man.
really cool.
It's the goal, man. I just want everybody to feel like I texted you. It's like it's two musicians having a beer in between sets. I don't want just because there's a camera on and we're recording and it's on the record, whatever, that then we have to be any less ourselves. This show is largely unedited, if not entirely unedited, just because of the fact that I want people to see and understand and experience the real side of people, and it doesn't feel like there's any kind of artifice. And that's why I told you I so appreciate the vulnerability, because it just shows exactly who you are. The same Zach that I experience on the gig is the same Zach that everyone's experiencing right now. So the two last quick speed round questions that we have to end the show is the first one is, if there is a recording of music that is some of your favorite music, could be something you're listening to today, this week, this month, this year, favorite of all time, what album would you tell people to go check out and why?
Oh man, you gotta hit me with that one.
Yeah.
That's like it's like always the hardest question,
Right.
Just because there's like so many, just so much, just so many influences that have like pushed me to like, be the person I am now. But one thing I can't live without, one album. Oh, damn, man.
You can give me two or three, whatever you want.
Yeah. I would say like, ooh, that's hard, man. Because I've always like loved Flying Lotus to death. He's been like he's always been like my greatest influence. Like You're Dead, that like album is like just a masterpiece that like I can come back to even like after 5 years and be like, yo, this is like freaking crazy. And, I'm so grateful like just to listen to musicians like him and like Thundercat and, just it has Kendrick Lamar and Snoop Dogg and like who else? Just great, just amount of musicians on there. And I think Asia by Steely Dan I'll always like cherish, because that's just like the perfect album. To me, it's like just such a perfectly recorded album, and just all the musicians on there are amazing. And, when I first heard Asia for the first time, I'm like, yo, I don't know what this is about, but like, this is amazing. This is just like a masterpiece, like song. Merriweather Post Pavilion by Animal Collective, that just like, I think it's an 11-song track or 11-song album, just everything top to bottom just flows perfectly into each other. And just like that, it just made me feel like really good. And it's cool to just like feel what those musicians are feeling, and they come from a very meditative space and very like just healing space too, which is great. I mean, there's so many other albums I can name. There's one I got into by this artist. His name is Deaton Chris Anthony. It's like just a
Okay.
big name. He's an amazing musician. It's called Boogie Woogie. He dedicated it to his bunny. His name's Boogie, but it's like
Okay.
super like dancey, super just like great, just like pop and like just cool grooves and everything, and amazing hooks and all that. I'll send it to you as well. But like,
Please.
I mean, yeah,
please.
there's so many albums out there. I mean, I can name we can all name like 20 or 50 more,
Sure,
obviously,
sure.
but I mean, those are a couple like I can't live without. But
Very cool.
what about
well,
you? Like, to ask you a question, what about you?
Oh, yeah, sure. I will tell you that the album that I have been listening to every single day for the past 2 months has been Time from Lewis Cole.
Dude, oh my God, I forgot about that one too, man.
Dude, I just think, and I'm really guilty of like, I did, of course, whenever I listen to an album, I just do a pass, the whole thing,
Yeah.
and then I'll like zero in on some that I really like.
Right.
If I'm in like a certain kind of mood, but ideally I like to just listen to albums all the way through just for the full experience. But like that one, I just find like even the ones that I like was like, okay, whatever. Like every couple days I'll be like, oh my God, this one, okay, so this is for any under 18 listeners, whatever. The one that is called like After the Load is Blown is such a great track, man. It's like it's pretty vulgar. Like, I mean, just like whatever. But like, dude, that one and Things.
Dude, I've cried to Things so many times. Yeah. Like, it's just that song's crazy. And the one after that, Night, is just like, yeah, dude, I totally forgot about. I mean, I can't forget about that album, but
sure.
He's a musical hero of mine as well. He just knows what he's doing.
Yeah, oh man, like a total bop that I just like. When I heard it for the first time, I screamed like I was in the car and I just like screamed. I was by myself and it was so like visceral. Was Trying Not to Die.
Dude,
just like. Oh man, just whenever it hits, oh dude, it's just Lewis Cole is like so good. And if you watch his videos, they are the funniest thing in the world, man. They're so funny.
Clowncore, all the the stuff with Sam Gendel and all those guys, like super sick. Yeah. No, yeah, that fill going into Trying Not to Die, that dude, yeah. He's so ridiculous, man.
Dude, and like something that I listen to a lot whenever I'm like need to be in like a meditative state is Phone.
Yeah,
dude, it just like
great song.
Oh man, that da 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 da. Oh, it's just like Oh man. Well, the last question of the show, and this is always my favorite, and even though this is like something that can be funny or particularly like, oh my God, like, oh shit, I can't believe this happened. I feel like if anybody will find the gratitude and the thankfulness in even the crazy experiences, it's you. So the last question of the show is, we all have gigs from hell, crazy experiences where stuff goes up the wall. Can you think of an exceptional gig from hell where you're just like, what's going on that stuck out to you?
I felt like this question was going to get brought up, and like, honestly, like, there are probably a couple. God, I'm trying to think, but I don't really have like one off the top of my head right now. But okay. I know there are definitely just moments where I was like, "Yo, I have no idea what the hell is going on right now." Like, there's man, I was playing this blues gig like back in 2018, like it was like at a party in Buda, kind of like a house party in Buda, and this like the old dude, he's like the owner of this house. Like he just like comes up next to me, just drunk as hell, just starts just tapping, just playing with my cymbals and drums and stuff. And like my buddy Mario, who's playing bass, is just like, it's just, and he wanted to keep us for an extra hour, with the same amount of pay. And I'm like, dude, if you're going to keep us for an extra hour, throw an extra $100 in. 'Cause I'm not going to play for, you guys who are like drunk out of your minds and like, just think you can walk all over musicians like that, So
Yeah,
I guess that's like one instance, but, I would just go with that. But yeah, I think, the musician's time has to be respected. You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, Zach, thank you so much again for coming on, man. One of my favorites. And everybody go listen to Gratitude Boy. Go to zachkursman.bandcamp.com.
Yeah, you could. I have my album up on Bandcamp. You can just look me up. Look me up on Bandcamp, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon. All the platforms. That DistroKid has provided for everybody. But it's out. And dude, thank you so much for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Of course. And everybody go to Bandcamp and smash that buy button. Don't stream it. Buy it. Cool. Awesome. Well, Zach, again, thank you so much. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, man.
All right.
You too, man. Appreciate
Peace.
it.
Bye.
Later.